I really think that there are two paths that we need to be on. One of them is to realize that the human organism needs time to process information. And that time now has become truncated. We have no time. We're expected to have information and act on it immediately. And one of the definitions that I give of complexity is that there are more wrong choices than right ones, and the number of wrong ones are exponentiating. So the odds of picking the right information and attaching it to the right action are decreasing by the picosecond. Okay, so we need time to process information. Now, computers like big data systems can do a certain amount of filtering for us, right, and get us down to the decisions we have to make. But we still have to process that information, and we can look over history and see that there is a direct relationship between alone time, right, unallocated time, meditation, if you will, thinking, processing time, whatever you want to call it, and ethics and morality. That the less time that we have, the more compression that there is in terms of time to be able to just think about who we are, what we want, what's important to us. And the worst acts in society, the more compressed that time gets, the more unethical and immoral a society becomes. So the faster we move, the less ethical we become as a society. So that connection's been drawn. There are philosophers and people who study human behavior. I'm not remembering the fellow who used to teach physics at Stanford, and I remember him giving a lecture and saying that he switched over from physics to religious studies. I believe he's up at San Francisco State right now. He'd be a great person for you to interview, because he said physics can only explain what, but it could never satisfy the question of why. And so he, although he was a great mind in physics and very successful, he moved over to religious studies. And one of the reasons is because he could see that the relationship between the amount of time that human beings have to contemplate their existence and morality were directly connected, and which is why you have throughout history the most ethical and moral creatures in our species, like monks, Tibetan monks, spending hours and hours and hours in meditation and prayer. I think we can all agree that their ethics are probably up here, and the guys who might be traders on the Wall Street floor, they're not really thinking about, at the moment they're executing a trade, wow, I'm getting 10,000 people to invest in polluting the water that my daughter's going to drink tomorrow. I mean, that process, those leaps are not going through their head. That's what you need time for. You need quiet time to process, and we can put whatever label we want on there. And that is what we have less of than any other time in human history. You don't remember this because you're a young person, but I will tell you that 30 and 40 years ago, sociologists were writing about the leisure class. That all this automation, robotics and factory automation and everything, were going to cause people to not have to work. And what were we all going to do with all that leisure time? Right? And they were projecting as to what was going to happen to human beings, that we would get lazier and we were fatter, and we are doing that. But leisure time, no, we have less leisure time than in any other time in human history. Think about that. Millions and millions of years. Prehistoric man who sat around in the caves had more leisure time than we have right now. And yet we have all this technology and all this automation. But you have mothers and fathers working and pretty much subcontracting the raising of their children. And huge sleep deficit. I mean, you have all kinds of problems going on as a result of no leisure time. And the morality and the ethics of society is one of the casualties of that. So that's one of the things that I think we really have to examine, and we have to make more provisions for people. And by the way, the United States is the worst. The United States, I think the last studies that they did was that the people in the United States work more hours and more days during the year than any other place. And so for all the advances that we've made, and for being the top of the heap in terms of countries and technologies and standard of living, we've made a huge sacrifice. And it's doubling back on us right now, because we're seeing the ethics and morality decay in government, in business, and we're seeing what the results of that really are. So if you were to ask me, what is the proper way to evolve the human organism, I would say we overshot the productivity bar, and we now need to pull back, and we now need to allow people more time for processing information, making better quality decisions, maybe fewer decisions, but better ones, and spending more time with family, so on and so forth. Then the second thing I want to talk about is collaboration. We have had a long and successful history of collaboration. When we collaborated in prehistoric times, we could fight off enemies that were larger than ourselves. We could catch prey that would feed larger groups and allow our numbers to multiply, which in turn created additional safety for us. So you really, at every turn, you will see that collaboration has been part of the human history and our legacy. And I will say that has not changed today. Today, when it comes to our most important decisions, such as a trial by jury, you'll see jurors collaborate together. There's a reason that Hollywood keeps making movies where a meteor is going to hit the Earth, right? Or aliens are attacking us, and then all of a sudden there's peace on Earth. We give up our biases and our political problems and our economic problems, and suddenly all armies are fighting off the aliens. Unfortunately, that goes back to that fight or flight. At the 11th hour, we get it together and we collaborate. We don't say, I'm not going to, deal with Iran, and Iran doesn't say, I'm not going to deal with America or North Korea or whatever. Once the entire planet is threatened, we all come together. I think I mentioned one of my favorite movies is Flight of the Phoenix. I love that movie because you can see all the biases and all the discrimination that's going on until the plane crashes. But then all of those people need each other. And so discrimination becomes a great luxury. Politics are set aside, economics are set aside. Suddenly we all need each other in order to get out of the desert alive. And so you can see that ultimately collaboration is what we lean on in times of serious danger. And there's no reason we shouldn't lean on collaboration before the danger occurs. That would be a great step in human evolution.